Hello, good evening, and thank you for viewing my presentation on examining teamwork through a biblical lens. My name is Jeremy Bredden, and I'm currently an MSCE student at Concordia University. Additionally, I am also a founding English teacher and athletic director at South LA College Prep. I have coaching experience in soccer, football, wrestling, and esports. Pictured beside me is my wife, McKenna. I chose to include this photo of us because I have learned more about teamwork in my relationship with her than I have on any other sports team that I've been a part of. As such, this got me thinking about how I would redefine my understanding of teamwork in light of how our relationship has shaped us. And so in thinking about that definition, I came up with this definition of teamwork here. So I defined teamwork as the willingness of a group to set aside their individual differences and even sacrifice for one another in pursuit of a common goal. Most of my definition from this comes from what my wife and I vowed to each other at our wedding. And so some of that learning comes to us from the Bible, right? And so we learn in the Bible, specifically in Ecclesiastes, that shared labor brings about shared rewards. And so when life becomes difficult, it's our relationships with our teammates that see us through. The quote here from Ecclesiastes 4:9 through 10 is that two people are better than one because they can reap more benefit from their labor. For if they fall, one will help his companion up. But pity the person who falls down and has no one to help him up. This is most readily applicable in relationships, marriages, things of that nature. But I was more interested in how we could take that application into a sports setting and think about it from that angle. And so as I got thinking more into how does this apply in non-romantically involved teams, I thought about the 12 disciples and Jesus's work with them. And so as we take a look at specifically when the 12 disciples began their ministry in Mark 6, we see that Jesus sends his disciples in pairs or teams of two into the wild. And they're instructed to travel extremely lightly and rely on the kindness of strangers who invite them into their homes. Now, at this time, Jesus actually told the disciples to stay in one place and one family when they were brought there. At the time, most religious philosophers at the time would beg from house to house. And so what Jesus was doing is asking these disciples to form more cohesive team-like bonds with the families they were staying with. That's one interesting aspect of this. But another interesting aspect, and I think the more readily apparent aspect of this, is that Jesus sends his disciples in teams of two and specifically instructs them to not take bags with them. No, they're allowed to wear sandals, but they're not allowed to wear tunics. And they're not allowed to have any money with them as well. And so essentially the disciples were totally reliant on each other and their faith to see them through. And connecting this with our verses from Ecclesiastes as well, see this as Jesus and God testing the disciples and saying that a cord of three strands is not quickly broken, right? Where one may fall, the other may help each other up, but it's that third aspect of faith and relying on something greater than themselves or that common goal that ties it all together. So that's how I see teamwork in through the Bible, right? And how I see teamwork being informed by biblical works. But at the core of everything there, teamwork and trust, right? So trust is inherent to teamwork. We must be willing and able to trust the members of our team if we're eventually to work together and achieve at a high level. This is true of marriages and relationships at the most fundamental level, but especially true for sports teams as well. And so we have some open study from John C. Maxwell in his book, Ethics 101. And there's a study in there that demonstrates how people go about engendering trust. And as I've mentioned, trust is that most fundamental basic aspect of teamwork. And so how do we gain more trust by the people that we're set to be in charge of as coaches or athletic directors? So people who engender trust maintain their integrity. They openly communicate their vision and values. They show respect for their teammates as well as equal partners. They focus on shared goals rather than personal agendas. They listen with an open mind, demonstrate compassion, and maintain confidences. Now, this list of 7 might be fine, and it's pretty all-encompassing. We can look at this and say, yes, I understand. But I think more than anything, it's going to be important for us to see how we can apply these lessons in engendering trust and building stronger teamwork. How can we see that applied, right? And so for us today, I have a clip from Coach Carter, the 2005 film. We're not going to watch the film together here. I'm going to pause the video after giving you some introduction. I'd like you to pause with me, take about 5 minutes to view the clip, and then afterwards we'll rejoin together. So some framing on the clip. At the beginning of Coach Carter, Timo, who is one of the players on the team, is an aggressive ringleader on the basketball team, which causes he and Coach Carter to butt heads. Eventually, Timo leaves the team to get further involved with gang activity and the other male figure in his life, his uncle. Realizing the error in his ways, Timo asks Coach Carter later on what he can do in order to get back on the team. This is sort of where the clip picks up. And so I'll pause here to give you an opportunity to view the clip on your own. Fantastic. So at that point, you should have been able to watch that 5-minute clip. I think it's one of the most powerful and impactful sports movies that came around when I was a young child. And the lessons that I learned here were really important for me as well. So as we go through and break down what we can learn from this, right, we see Timo's evidence of teamwork, right? He humbles himself. He asks what the price of admission is to join back on the team. Of course, the coach says at first, you don't want to know, it's going to be too much. You don't want to do that. But Timo maintains his integrity. He asks for it. He knows what he wants to do. He knows how he needs to better himself. And so he maintains his integrity and his word, focusing himself and getting all of those push-ups and sit-ups and suicides out of the way. In doing this, not only does he maintain his integrity, but he also demonstrates his respect for his teammates as equal partners. He doesn't think that he's above them or better than them. He's humbling himself and saying, you know what? I've made a mistake. I know what I need to do. Here's how I'm going to get myself back. That also demonstrates that he's focused on their shared goal of winning. He has a deadline of Friday. He has to get these things done before he can play in the next game, which is an important game for the team to get back onto their winning ways. Now, on the team's evidence of teamwork as well, we share their physical load. So once the Timo demonstrates that he's willing to do that price of admission to get back onto the team sees this and they recognize that, demonstrating compassion, and they ask, like, what can I do? How can I bring him back into the fold with me as well? And so they share that labor there. This also demonstrates that they're maintaining their integrity and their values. There's that lovely scene as well where Channing Tatum, I forget his player's name, but Channing Tatum throws back at Coach Carter that line that he had told the team: when one of us struggles, we all struggle. When one of us succeeds, we all succeed. This also demonstrates that they're remaining focused on their shared goal of winning. They know what they need to do. They know that they would be much more successful with Timo, their brother, on the team. And so they're willing to sacrifice for that shared goal. Now, Timo is a great example of teamwork. The team is a great example of teamwork. But the thing that I'm most focused on here is the man who brought it all together, and that would be Coach Carter. Now, throughout the entire movie, and specifically this scene, Coach Carter evidences all 7 of those trust-building qualities and characteristics. He openly communicated his vision and values to his team. He said, this is where we're going to be. This is what we need to do. And this is my vision for success. Once the team bought into that, they were able to have that success. Timo initially disagreed, and so he left, but he realizes the errors in his ways and comes back. Coach Carter also is able to maintain his integrity by giving a very firm, high level of success that he expects of all of his players. He's not going to make exceptions for Timo just because Timo's in a tough spot. Here's my expectation. Here's where you need to meet me. He shows respect for his team as equal partners by doing that as well, because no one person's efforts towards that team feel like they're being cheapened by the lack of respect that Timo initially had and is now trying to gain back. He's focused on winning. That's evident throughout the entire thing. And I think more than anything, he demonstrates compassion when he listens to Timo with an open mind. Initially, he's gruff and says, Timo, you don't want to be on this team. You don't want to know what the price of admission is. Give up, Mr. Cruz. That can seem to be a sort of negative or harsh mentality, but I think what he's doing here is pushing Timo, because Timo's thinking to himself, I don't want this as bad when his muscles become sore, when he becomes tired. Coach Carter's telling him, just give up. It's easy, just do it. And that reignites that fire, that vigor, and that dedication towards that team. So through all of this, Coach Carter really is the one who's driving the growth of his team by having those high expectations and not wavering from them. So in a way to encapsulate my understanding of teamwork and the value of teamwork, what it means to be a good team, I like to think about this quote from the legendary coach, Phil Jackson. He said that the strength of the team is each individual member, and the strength of each member is the team. Without one, we cannot be whole. Taking a look at my references, I have a few from the Bible Gateway. We looked at Ecclesiastes and Mark. We also looked at John C. Maxwell's Ethics 101 and the YouTube clip, Coach Carter. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Again, thank you for your time.